All right, well, let's get started. Calling this meeting to order. And first, we need roll call.
Ms. Douglas? Here. Mr. Hamilton?
Here.
Ms. Hetland?
Here.
Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Ms. Makowski? Mr. Morrison?
Here.
Ms. Salmon?
Here.
Ms. Waller?
Here. Okay. Any changes to the agenda? No. Okay. Next is approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody have any comments or questions about those minutes? All right. Would someone like to move that we approve those minutes?
I move we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We've now approved the minutes from the previous meeting. Next, let's move to Urbana Arts Grants presentation from the Folk and Roots Festival. Sorry, caught you at the wrong moment.
No, it's fine. It's really quiet in here, isn't it? Hi.
Hi.
I'm Brenda Koenig. I'm co-chair of the Champaign-Urbana Folk and Roots Festival. And it's my pleasure to be here. And thank you once again for helping make the festival a success. And I think you guys are all aware, many of you are all aware, that money that came from this committee helped start the festival in 2009. And every year we've been very generous, and we're very thankful for the money that we have gotten and the funding and support that we've gotten from the Urbana Arts Commission. So thank you very much. I guess what I'll do is start with a YouTube video. We found this. I'm a graduate student, put this together, and I was looking on YouTube last year after the festival. This is just a little quick YouTube video that I've found pleasantly. Let's see, do we have any? Thank you.
Saturday. The crowd was bigger than ever, and for some...
Thank you.
Uh-oh.
I know. What did you do?
This year, Champaign-Urbana's full... This year, Champaign-Urbana's Folk and Roots Festival had quite the lineup. In its 5th year, the festival capped off at the Iron Post on Saturday. The crowd was bigger than ever, and for some, like first-timer Scott Humphrey, it was a surprise.
I was kind of surprised to see that many people turning out for this, solo older woman on stage. That was kind of cool. But she was great, really, really good. Her name was Del Rey.
And after Del Rey was the Viper and his famous orchestra, and lead singer Ryan Jerving says he too noticed something special about this year's crowds.
Great crowds. I mean, people seem like who came seem ready to have a good time, right?
And fellow performer Emily Oatness agrees, but for her, one of the best moments was during the last part of the festival, a stage jam.
My favorite moment of the jam is when Cody from Bones, Jugs, and Harmony got pointed at to solo, but it was on, I don't know what it was called. I think it was called the Jawbone. It was ridiculous.
And if you'd like to get involved with this ridiculous fun next year, head to their website, folkandroots.org.
So it was really nice that she put that together. Let's see, how do I get back out of this now? Escape, you told me that. Okay. Thanks. All right, so I presented some of this already in December of last year when I came in front of the Arts Commission to talk a little bit about the festival and the future of the festival. So bear with me if this looks familiar. Some of this I have changed. Our 5th annual festival was November 1st and 2nd of last year, 2013. We had over a dozen venues throughout downtown Urbana within about a 2 or 3 block radius, so it was very concentrated. We're an all-volunteer run festival. We presented 91 free and low-cost activities over our 2-day festival. That's 91. You have a schedule I must have passed around. It's 2 double-sided. You can take a look at that. Yeah, she has it. Barbara has one right now. Just to give you an idea of the scope and variety of things that we had going on here in downtown Urbana, 91 different activities. It included performances, dances, instructional sessions, jams, song circles, storytelling, hands-on workshops, and family activities. Half of those that we presented, half of those events that you see on there, more than half were free and open to the public. In fact, everything that's hands-on or participatory or family-oriented was free. So if you wanted to come and sing, if you wanted to come and play guitar, learn something in a workshop, if you wanted to come and bring your family and go to some family folk performances or workshops or storytelling, all that was free. So over half of our activities. The festival has a particular interest in evolving in unique forms of folk music and art. We really keep our eyes open for this kind of thing, things that maybe people have never even seen before. So we hopefully are exposing to them, like she said, somebody does, I mean, the jawbone, people used to play the jawbone, and a lot of people don't know that. And so it's kind of neat when people have that aha moment. We also have over 80 individuals who volunteer a 4-hour shift or more during the festival. There's a picture of a couple of our volunteers. We have volunteer sound technicians, ticket takers, food vendors, not food vendors, people who actually bake in their home and bring it to the green room for volunteers and for performers. We also have people who volunteer their homes for the performers to sleep in. We have a steering committee of 8 to 10 individuals. We meet year-round to plan for the festival. We also organize year-round shows and events. So this is not just something that happens in November. November is kind of the huge festival that we do have, but we also have things that happen during the course of the year, and we have a newsletter that comes out on pretty much a monthly basis. As we're all volunteers, it's not as regular as it could be. Maybe we have it 8 to 10 times a year. On that newsletter, lists all the activities that we're sponsoring over a course of a month or 2. Our total volunteer hours for the core volunteers, as well as the 4 hours that each of these other volunteers donate, is 1,143. I mean, that's an approximate amount. I mean, I can't tell you. You ask for how many total hours, and I mean, I think about me even just late at night. I have a full-time job and 3 children, so I spend a lot of time between about 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. on the festival. That's kind of when I do it, when I can do it. But other people do the same thing, and we just don't. I mean, counting things like going in and talking to Matt at Pizza M. I mean, all that kind of stuff. It's hard to really quantify the number of hours. So we just did the best we could there. We are a 501c3 not-for-profit organization. That happened in 2010. Oops. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so we have a 4 to 5 person booking committee, and we can also have a lot of great performances. I'm going to go like that. Nope. Yeah. I'll go back one. There we are. Now full screen goes down here. Yes. This was our blues guitarist, Del Rey, fantastic, amazing woman from Seattle, Washington, someone who flies under the radar but should not. She was amazing, and you should have seen how she made the ukulele sing. This is the Orphean Mandolin Orchestra. A woman named Martha Tyner lives on a farm south of Bloomington Normal, has a group of mandolin players that come together on a weekly basis on her farm. And people don't realize the mandolins come in all different sizes, and so you have bass mandolin, and it's just crazy. And there used to be quite a tradition in Central Illinois mandolin orchestras. There's an Urbana-based gypsy jazz band that played at Bouvans last year. We had children's programming. The Viper and his Family Orchestra did one. We had last year Los Condenados Huastecos come down from Chicago, and we collaborated with the Spurlock Museum on them. They played at the Spurlock Museum, and then they came to Leal Elementary, to the Leal's bilingual program, which we underwrote that performance, the assemblies that they did at Leal. There's a bluegrass band, the Whipstitch Sallies. the Rose Bowl. We also have quite a few dances during the festival. There's a square dance. We had the Champaign Central High School Jazz Ensemble playing for the swing dance on Friday night last year. This year we'll have Mobetta Jazz Ensemble. Festival attendees could choose from many different types of dances. So we had Yiddish and Contra and Cajun, all had live music and live calling and instruction. Storytelling and sing-alongs, we had a lot of that as well, 8 to 10 storytelling sessions and workshops, as well as campfire sing-alongs at the Iron Post, shape note and family singing. You can see some fun outdoor, people are really happy to be around a campfire even in November singing songs. Look at the smiles on their faces. Almost half of our scheduled events are free activities. There's a African drumming workshop going on there. Blues guitar. Oh, sorry about that. Every time I kind of just tap, it kind of goes back, so I apologize. Oh, okay, that's
Okay,
probably a
watch
better
that.
idea, isn't it? There's a blues guitar workshop. We had almost 20 guitar players crammed in a small little classroom at the Community Center for the Arts. Then we had a how to play the washboard workshop. Very complicated, actually. Not an easy thing to do. Ukulele workshop, old time jam. Lincoln Square Mall, you can see, we used that last year quite a bit. And the blues jam got so big, it spilled down the stairs into the Piatto space. There's a ukulele workshop. Blues guitar, I believe that was finger picking. No, I lost track. I lose track of these, sorry. We have also down there, that's a picture of an Irish session that was going on at Iron Post on Saturday afternoon. Family programming, we were really lucky to have an underwriter for some of our family programming with the Sousa Archives. Last year we had a whole, you can see Scott Schwartz there in the background. We had a whole day of family programming starting at 9 a.m. in the Landmark ballroom. It ended about 4 p.m., so that's consecutive family events. Some pictures of some of the kids having a really good time. And Mr. Stevens, who's a local treasure, started out singing as a volunteer at Thomas Paine Elementary. And every year he dyes his beard green for the children. They love it. I don't understand. I'm not quite sure exactly why. There's the Leal, the assembly at Leal Elementary. This year we'll have also assemblies at Prairie Elementary and I believe at Urbana High School this year. Sponsors in 2013, we have a lot of people who work on this, and kudos to them. Of course, the Urbana Public Arts Commission, Busey Bank, Sousa Archives, University of Illinois, Christie Clinic, Illinois Marathon, Spurlock Museum, Urbana Business Association, University of Illinois Press, Krannert Center for the Performing Arts, Common Ground. I mean, it just can go on. We work really hard forging relationships with these people and continuing to talk to many of these sponsors are also sponsors this year, continuing to talk to them. And we actually add new sponsors as well. This year we're working with Alan Hall and bringing in Don Flemons of the Carolina Chocolate Drops. He'll be at Alan Hall on Thursday. And then at our festival on Thursday night at Krannert Center. And then on Friday for performances and workshops. And we also collaborate with other community folk organizations. That's one of how we can do this, actually. It's only possible because we try to gather all the energy and help we can from people like Urbana Country Dancers or Piper's Hut, Irish Music Series, the Prairie Crossroads Blues Society. CU Storytelling Guild has kind of evolved into a CU Storytelling group, but they're still active and they still work with us on all day Saturday in the Urbana Free Library. So the economic impact is probably pretty obvious. We had 1,500 people approximately. It's hard to count the free events because people come and go pretty, especially at Urbana Free Library. So people will come sit down for 15, 20 minutes and then they'll move on. And it's, but doing a lot of the The counting are the venue coordinators, and they do a fantastic job of tallying people on every about half hour. So our estimation is 1,500 people who attend the festival. So they obviously purchase food, drinks, hotel rooms, and more. And they experience Urbana as an arts-friendly and vibrant place to visit and live. There's 200 people attending the lunchtime buffet at Piatto's. I had that. Buffet was fantastic. And she's also a local treasure, by the way, if you didn't know. Our festival business partners and venues, we, like I said, over a dozen venues. In 2013, they were at Strawberry Fields, Heartland. It also included Iron Post Community Center for the Arts. These are where the events actually took place, these venues. The Rose Bowl Tavern, the Urbana Free Library, Bouvan's, Independent Media Center, Landmark Hotel, Corson's Music, Piatto's, Common Ground Food Co-op, in their classroom there. We had several workshops, and Lincoln Square Mall. The CU Folk and Roots Festival markets and promotes Urbana as a art-loving, community-friendly destination. In 2013, we spent over $4,000 marketing the festival as a distinctly Urbana event. As you can see, this is our 2014 flyer, and across the top, downtown Urbana. That's where this was that video. The attendance last year increased 30% over 2012, especially during our free daytime events. Everybody loves the word free. So the question is, how do we accomplish so much with so little? Because we really don't have very much money. Our budget is around $30,000 a year. Looking and talking to people that we know in the Midwest, our costs are 50 to 75% less than similarly sized festivals. And how is that? Well, we operate on all volunteer. Basically, that's everything is volunteers. Volunteers donated, over 1,000 hours. We have donated venue space. We don't really rent. We rent only a couple places. Last year we rented IMC and the Landmark Hotel Ballroom. This year we're only renting the Landmark, so it's free. The sound systems we get are often donated. Sound engineers are all almost free, except for our main stage. We pay for those people. We collaborate with the community, folk and cultural organizations. One thing is, most everybody that is on the board or works in booking are musicians themselves. So we know what's going on. We know who's come up and coming usually, and we can kind of work the inside system a little bit and get people to come before they get their agents and big prizes. Last year our costs were $31,000, and this year our income was $34,000 approximately. Ticket sales account for a third of the cost of the festival, so the rest really comes from sponsorships and grants, individual sponsorships and grants. This is a quote that talks about how important cultural events are to the process of urban development. Cities which successfully harness cultural events as part of a broader developmental strategy will reap the benefits of generating wider cultural, social, and economic health. I really believe that. I hope you too. You guys do too. So in less than almost 3 weeks, we're going to have a 2014 festival. Every time, right now, it's a really difficult time for us because we're not sure how it's all going to come together, and we're worried about it, and it always does. We've lost a lot of our venues this year. We kind of shifted over, and we've also lost volunteers. It's hard to put this much amount of time into a project year after year after year. So new people sometimes move in, and old people move out, and we keep our fingers crossed. So November 7th and 8th, and here's some of the fantastic people we have coming. I'm really excited. I hope you are too. I hope everyone can come and see the festival in 2014. We have a wonderful blues player, Reverend Robert Jones Jr. from Detroit, Michigan, coming down. He's going to do workshops, like I said, in the public schools for us. Woody Pines is a great early jazz swing band. Dom Flemons from the Carolina Chocolate Drops. Pop Wagner does cowboy tunes. Mama Edie Armstrong is a bilingual storyteller from Chicago, Spanish and English from the Caribbean. We have Maha Jacobson and David Boulanger. They are from, one is from Denmark and the other one is from Quebec. So I'm a particular, I don't know if you guys, how much you know about fiddling, but I am a huge fan of Quebecois fiddling, and it's the one where they use the feet and they tap, and you can't go listen to these guys without getting up and wanting to dance. This year we have 82 performances. This is my last slide. So I just thought you might want to know what's new, what are we doing differently this year. We have 82 performances, workshops, jams, dances. We're down about 10 from last year. One thing that we trying to do is there's so much going on that people, especially hardcore folk fans, start hyperventilating because they can't get to it all. So we said, okay, we promise we won't have quite as much going on this year. And so we did our best, and still we're only down 10 events. So anyway. Our venues this year include the Urbana Free Library, Common Ground Co-op, Pizza M, the Rose Bowl Tavern, Community Center for the Arts, the Iron Post, the Landmark Hotel Ballroom and Library, Strawberry Fields, Black Rock Pizza, and Piattos. And we're down about 3 venues from last year. We did add family dance and family performance to the free family programming, so we now have even more for kids. So it goes, actually, the family program has been expanded. It's been very popular. Festival Central tables, we're moving those to the Landmark lobby to make the festival more compact and reduce the number of volunteers we need. So it's a struggle to get those 80 volunteers sometimes. So that's what's new, and if you have any questions,
Well, you've done an incredible job.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to make comments? You have questions?
So one question I have is that IMC was on the venue, was one of the venues last year.
Correct.
I don't see them on the list this year. Is that anything we should know about the circumstance?
No, nothing at all. I think what happened is we were using the Landmark Hotel Ballroom because of the dance floor. The dancers didn't like the tile in the IMC, really is what it came down to. And so we started moving the dances over there, and then we realized, well, we could have the dances and we could have some we could really use optimal, and we didn't use it as much as we could yet. We could use it in a more optimal way by starting like at 5 p.m. and having performances in there as well. And I think what happened too is we had a couple performances at IMC last year we spent a lot of money on, and people didn't go to those performances. IMC was dead, and we didn't like that. I mean, we felt like there were certain venues that were just hopping and popping all the time, and then people weren't going to the IMC, and I'm not really sure why. So we decided we'd try this. The green room we had in the back, and we had an auction over here. We needed a lot of people to man those different places. We needed it. So by doing this condensing, we have less of we don't spend as much on the sound, and when we reduce, people are like, oh, a lot of people do want to be venues, but they don't realize that when we set up a venue, we have to have the setup, we have to have the sound person, we have to have the volunteers, the volunteer coordinators, we have to have ticket takers. It takes a lot to actually have a venue. We'd really like to see people understand that and give back in some way, and some businesses do and some businesses don't. I mean, that's been our experience.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thanks very much for your presentation.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just add that you're doing a fantastic thing for
Thanks.
the community.
Yes,
so.
thank you. Okay, we're going to move now to the monthly progress report.
So I realized when I was creating this, I put a lot of intern information under Urbana Grants, but it all does dovetail. So under Urbana Grants, the process has been started to hire an intern, and the deadline for the applications is actually this Sunday. And basically, I wanted to have the intern work mostly on the grants, whether it's the presentations to the community to get the word out about the grants, creating forums, the database, the application process, marketing, all of that. So that's going to be their main project. And hopefully I would like the intern to start either October 27th or November 3rd. So that's kind of the time frame that we're looking at. Fundraising, we're making some progress slowly but surely. So we're preparing to fundraise for additional supports for arts in the schools to supplement programming to additional schools, as well as funds to increase the pool of money to Urbana Arts Grants. And with both of these projects, we're looking at an additional funding of around $5,500 to $8,000 total. So about another $3,000 for arts in the schools and another $2,500 to $5,000 for the grants program. And in terms of an event, we're looking at holding an event in conjunction with the opening of Boneyard Park in the spring. So it's all still kind of under consideration right now, but things are moving, which is great. Marketing, still going forward with our social media presence, and that continues to increase incrementally every month. You can see the direct numbers there, 738 fans for Facebook, 1,187 followers for Twitter. I put out a print ad in Buzz for grants, so that's been out there to kind of create a little bit of notice that, yes, the application process is coming, and put people on notice for that. And yes, once the temporary sculptures all get installed, I was planning on creating a kind of glossy marketing brochure about that, because those will be around for the next 2 years. And in Downtown Arts Subcommittee, which I'm just looking at, scratch downtown, just make it Arts Subcommittee. Updates for downtown sculpture, this is all pretty much coming together, so you'll notice that a lot of the sculptures have been changed out by now. So if you're walking down Main Street, you will see Whirlwind is in Thorntree in front of Cinema Gallery, and that was installed at the end of September. And A Thirst by Sarah Depp will be installed in Boneyard Creek as soon as the rain stops and we can actually get some plantings in there. So that's been delaying us. Maelstrom 2 by Craig Snyder. That will be installed in about a week or two on the corner of Florida and Philo there by the Sprint store. And then Stranger Reduction Zone, we finally figured out a site for that. That's the interactive piece that we were looking at. And that will be installed on the left-hand side of the side entrance of the library. So kind of the main entrance as you're going in there from the parking lot. And so it'll be a great project, and they're on board, and they're looking at doing some programming around it, so
Cool.
it looks like a good partnership. And then our last sculpture, which you'll see a picture of it on the back, is called Twista 2 by Bennett Wine. And that's going to be installed around November 6th, and that will go near the corner of Washington and Philo, probably more in the little mini park there that's across from Huaraches. And so then that will complete our kind of scope of temporary sculpture. And Art at the Market, I was sad to see that end for this season. Saturday, September 13th was the fifth and final one, and we had a really good crowd. Almost 500 people came for making nature mobiles and the curses. And overall, we had about 1,600 people for the 5 months, which was pretty good. Some events were more widely attended than others, so I made some notes about that. Artist of the Corridor, Jill Strohberger, who you see outside right now, is going to come down in 2 weeks. And then Carol Disfarnham with her watercolors will go up for November, December, and January. And I was also approached by the staff of the library to create a little auxiliary exhibition space, and I decided to run it in tandem with Art of the Corridor, so we'll have a presence both here and over at the library.
That's good.
With the artist and the pieces. And with Art Now, in the October episode, Beth Darling was profiled with her paintings of Urbana's gardens and views of the Southwest. And amazingly enough, next month's episode will be number 50. So pretty incredible. Thank you for all of the commissioners who've worked on that over the years. And then some movement finally with art in the schools. I just met today with some teachers at Prairie Elementary, and they were kind of giving me a rough outline of what they wanted or thought that their proposal was going to be. And so I'll meet with them in another 2 weeks as I get it fleshed out, and then they'll present to the PAC on November 18th at your next meeting.
Okay. Next, I don't know if we need to say too much about the Public Arts Commission committees list. We talked about it at the last meeting, and this is pretty much what we decided upon there. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Wonder why you're on the list? Whatever.
I just put it on here, so if you wanted to approve it, you could. If
Do
not,
we need to do that?
No.
I didn't think so. Okay. Okay.
Did you say a committee list? Are you talking about?
Yeah, the subcommittee list. Yeah. Oh, you didn't get it in your packet? Oh, really? Oh, because it was in mine.
Was yours online? Or
Yeah.
She did
It was in-
something
She
in
didn't
there.
get one either.
Oh, okay.
And some of them, I have trouble downloading the things that are on the website. The attachments are fine. I
Mhm.
can open them.
Yeah.
But I can't open any of the ones that are on the links to the PDFs
Okay.
for some reason.
Okay. Well, we should
But
probably.
they will list them.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the Public Arts Commission's bylaws. I believe we were asked to come up with specifics for, what are there, 5 areas of public input. And I think you've covered them here. I can read these off briefly. It's where public input appears on the agenda, how long each member of the public shall have her input, reduce time limits for an individual's public input where a threshold number of members of the public seek to provide public input, limitations that public input be limited to topics germane to the agenda, and that no member of the board, commission, or committee which receives public input is obligated to respond to anything contained in a person's public input. Has everybody read through these and had a chance to look at them? Have any questions?
Basically, this came down from our legal department, who wants to kind of get a uniformity with all of the bylaws and everything, especially regarding public input. And then we realized that we didn't have bylaws. We had our ordinance, but no bylaws. So I created these, and the public input part is part of them. So if there's anything that needs to be fleshed out, or there's something that I missed, let me know.
I wasn't clear that we had anything on limitations to topics germane to the agenda. Is there something that addresses that? I might have missed it.
No, it doesn't look like it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
go ahead.
yeah, I would actually be opposed to including that in the bylaws because you're limiting people to 5 minutes
Mhm.
anyway.
Right.
And it's really quicker to just listen to them for 5 minutes than it is to try to argue with them about
Whether it's
and
germane
maybe
or
even
not.
among ourselves about whether it's germane to the agenda. I mean, we
Yeah.
do have people at city council sometimes who will go on about stuff,
Mhm.
and it's really easier just to listen and then say your 5 minutes are up.
I'm not sure, though, that we can, well, I mean, I can ask the legal department, but especially with these 5 items, those are ones that they wanted in there. So I don't know that we might be able to take them out.
Well, yeah, let's ask, but we've, to my knowledge, we have, I mean, we've had the city attorney sitting right there. We have never, ever, ever enforced that particular item, that particular
Yeah, and I understand why. I
constraint.
mean,
And yeah, and it would be would really be impossible to do. And I don't know. It's just a point of principle with me. I don't see that having a rule that you will never enforce sort of fosters disrespect for rules in general. So although it's a sort of a small point, I would really like to see if we can eliminate that.
Okay, I'll go back and ask.
Barbara, go ahead.
I can remember when there have been times in the past where we've had public input that was not on the agenda, and we were all going to ourselves, wonder where that came from, and we just listened politely, and then we usually the head of the committee referred them to someone upstairs to take care of it. But I can remember it was kind of a little awkward at times.
Yeah, it
Oh.
was.
In some ways, I can see the reason for some of this. If that were to come up again, I can see where had we had that, But, you know, you're right, when it happens, it's so quick and you don't know it's coming either.
And that's something that a person could always debate. I mean, if I wanted to be difficult and I was sitting over there, I would say, what part of human experience is not relevant to art?
Well, I think the particular one she may be thinking of, it was really an issue that covered all the committees of the city, and we couldn't really make a decision, you know, because it isn't something that we have authority to do. So in that case, it probably would have been better to just refer to someone else.
Just as a matter of clarification, I saw that item we're discussing. I guess this is item 4, limitations to public. But I didn't end up seeing that reflected in the actual section of the bylaws. So I assumed, what we're approving now is Article 5, public input, under the bylaws, right? Or no? No.
The entire bylaws.
The entire bylaws, okay. And under Article 5, public input, Section 1, it says that people will be permitted to speak on any matter listed on the agenda or on any other matter of public concern. So it's already open in there, right? So we didn't
That's
actually,
true.
these bylaws don't actually carry out that recommendation.
Right.
So it's really moot, I think.
So the other thing that happened at council is that there was a person who objected to giving his address for the record, who happens to be one of our local artists. A work of his which happens to be on one of our walls, but it was a point of principle. He said, this is being televised and it's going to be a permanent record, and I think it's a privacy thing. I don't think I should have to give my address. So we said, okay, don't give your address.
No. That's okay, but I guess, again, well, maybe these are issues, since we're not addressing number 4 here, we know we're not, and in fact, we're contradicting it somewhat. Perhaps this is something you need to take back to the lawyers? Yeah.
Yeah.
About that particular point. Is this something now that we have to vote on, to approve?
Well, not since there's going to be changes. Let me get
Okay,
back
so
to you
we'll
with
do that for maybe next time?
Yeah, different document, and then you can
Okay.
go from there.
Okay.
But what would just so I'm clear, what would the changes be? Because we're not actually voting on the memo, we're voting on the bylaws, which are labeled attachment A, right? So we wouldn't be looking for any changes to the bylaws because they don't actually state you have to be germane to the topic, right? Maybe I'm confused about what we're voting on, if we did vote.
Well, I have to go back and ask about Section 4, because
Okay.
if that part comes out, then that would change it. And then I might change Section 1 to reflect something more about limitations on topics pertaining to the agenda and focus that a little bit more, rather than make it so general
Okay.
for Section 1 under Article 5.
Okay.
So is it possible we need a little more review time to evaluate? I mean, we're constantly growing and evolving and trying to perfect and improve. So perhaps we just need a little more time.
Yeah, well, I can actually email you this revised document once I talk to legal and do the changes, and then if you want to review for the next 3 weeks, and then we'll come back for the November meeting.
Would be helpful.
and then-
So just so I'm clear, the rest of this content, except for the bylaws, comes from the ordinance? It's just kind of moved over and put in the bylaws version?
Not all
or-
of it. I kind of cribbed from different bylaws here and there
Okay.
to
Yeah.
kind of not customize the language,
Yeah.
but make the language more the same for the different committees. So I
Okay.
tried to take out the stuff that wasn't germane and bring the things
Yeah.
in that were germane.
Yeah,
And then I
we
brought
just-
in some of the language from the ordinance,
Based on the
because
ordinance.
that's what we're bound by.
Yeah.
So if you tell Jim that Eric is making life difficult, he'll laugh and say that he's not surprised.
Okay, well, we'll look at that again next
Just trying to
meeting
keep
then.
us on the straight and narrow.
Okay, next okay, next we'll move to the non-endowed fund agreement between the City of Urbana Public Arts Program and the Community Foundation of East Illinois.
So this is almost verbatim the same exact document that was passed through for the Legacy Tree Foundation by council. I just made it germane to Public Arts Commission and changed some of the language in fund termination and also the dollar amount to open the fund. So if this document gets approved, then I'm assuming it goes to council, though I'm not sure. And then we will go through the process of creating the foundation with the Community Foundation of East Central Illinois, and then we'll have a repository for fundraising funds.
Did anybody have any questions about this? Okay, so, I'm sorry, go ahead, Barbara.
I just had a question. It's related to the funds and accessing the funds. Is there, since I didn't get to read this until I arrived, is there a way, how do we implement accessing the funds? And
Basically, it comes from the foundation, so if we go through any kind of fundraising campaign and that money gets put in the foundation and we say, well, in 6 months, we need the funds for this or that, we let the foundation know and Joan will write us a check. And she likes to keep it on kind of a quarterly basis. She doesn't want to write a check every month necessarily. So it would depend on when we would be utilizing the funds. And basically, we would have access to them whenever we needed them.
okay, because I've been on another board that had their funds in the Community Foundation, and that was an issue sometimes when the funds were needed to be accessed, and they didn't always have access to their funds.
It will be a little bit of a timing issue because the board has to meet, their board has to meet and approve the funds going out of the foundation, so
How
there might
often
be a
do they
lag.
meet?
I think it's monthly, but depending on where we catch it in the month, it might be a wait.
No.
Okay. Just so we're aware of contingencies and
Yeah.
issues that in case we have, if you can look down the road, which is always sometimes hard.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And then I just want to point out, I don't know if you saw the charge for the fee would be anywhere from, well, it's about 1.35 of the balance. So that shifts a little bit, but that's an average of the charge.
I was going to say, will it go higher than that, or does it change on a yearly basis?
It stays the same for that year,
Okay.
so, but it's within like a 1.27 to 1.35 range.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions? This is something we need to vote on and approve, is that correct?
mhm.
Okay. Would someone like to move that we approve this agreement for a non-endowed fund between the Urbana Public Arts Commission and the Community Foundation of East Central Illinois?
I move that we approve this agreement as presented.
A second.
Okay. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we've approved it. Okay, next we move on to the mural project in the Boneyard Park.
Hello? Oh,
There you go.
I'm never going to get used to these mics. This is the kind of the second iteration of this proposal that's been presented to us, and so I'll give you the background for this. Mike Hoser approached the city with a proposal for a mural for 208 West Griggs, and that's the building that basically back ends the one end of the Boneyard Creek. So you see the full boneyard, and you see this long 90-foot by 16-foot white wall, which is the side of his building. And he wants to partner with the city for this particular mural project, which is going to be produced by Langston Alston, who's a local street artist, in the amount of $3,500. So he would be looking for a $1,750 match by the city. And there's a couple points in favor of a project like this. One is that Mike is a good arts patron for the city and has shown a lot of initiative in creating arts projects. He has sponsored a sculpture through the Public Art League for the Boneyard, which is the one that I talked about and will be installed in the next couple weeks. And it gives a local presence to a local artist within the Boneyard, because with the public artist Jack Mackey from Seattle and a lot of the landscape architecture designs, the firm is from Denver, so it brings the Boneyard project locally, and I think gives a good presence to a local artist. And so actually I have up on screen just a mock-up of what this mural will look like in this particular location. This is it from far away. It's a little distorted. I couldn't make the dimensions correct. This is it from a longer view. It will be a focal point. I mean, the wall is pretty much a focal point now, even blank, but it will be something that will draw your eye from wherever you are in this whole project. No, he still might do the wine bar restaurant idea. If he does that, he will just punch some windows and doors in it. He's not sure yet about that, but he does definitely want to go ahead with the mural. And there were two artists that he was considering, Glenn Davies, and now Langston has come into the process a little bit late, and he's leaning more towards Langston's. So that's why I'm proposing, or I'm giving you his proposal for Langston. Mm-hmm. And Langston's fee and time. Yeah.
Just a point of curiosity, this is his personal building. It's not a public city building, right?
Correct.
But if there's city funds that go towards this, then we don't have to ask for bids for other local artists or anything? Are there any legal limitations on something like this? I don't know. I'm just asking.
No, not that I know of. I mean, that was the kind of process that I suggested from the beginning, but it hasn't turned out that way. And it's just the way that it's ended up. But no, we don't have to do that.
I just wondered, because if it was involving city funds, then I wondered if there were some stipulations that were involving something like this. That's all.
Yeah, not that I know of.
Okay. I don't know either. That's why I'm asking.
And just so I'm clear, because I haven't been over there lately, the proposal we have, there's a mosaic going up on the underside. The wall is actually I suppose is city.
That's already done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So I only stay in South Urbana these days. So there's essentially, this is going to look like two images from a lot of perspectives, right?
Is this the way it is? This is on the bottom and this is the top. Are they in the same location as one
Yep.
distant from the other?
No, that's exactly how it is. Basically, the wall for the public art project with the mosaic on this piece is there, and then Mike's wall is maybe 5 feet, 10 feet away. So it will look like it's right up next to it, because you're always going to be looking at it from that distance.
I
So-
see.
Some eyes I would love to have on this would be the landscape architects.
Mm.
I don't know if that's possible, but as you say, it's a major focal point, and I would be curious about their input on this, as they've obviously given a lot of time to the thought behind the design of this whole experience for people. I just wonder what they would think about this, but I'm not sure what I would do in terms of action based on that, but I would value their opinion in this case. You think that's possible?
Yeah, I have their contact information. I can
Yeah.
shoot it to them. The thing is that whether or not it gets approved, something's going to happen no matter
That's what I mean.
what.
I just,
Yeah.
but
Just
they may have some interesting suggestions that would be worth our hearing, and as well as the owner hearing. And it may be the suggestions that they might make even to the muralist.
The image on the bottom is a given.
Yes, it's there already.
We're talking about what's on top in this
Yeah.
picture.
Right.
Correct.
And that's probably what you're getting. I mean, I would think you'd want coordination between those two images, wouldn't you?
I
Is that what you were
certainly would.
getting at?
Yeah, and I mean, I can see that from the color scheme that Langston's thinking about that a bit. I'm actually thinking more dramatically of the longer shot that Lisa provided, which I hadn't really seen. That mock-up just made me think that's the kind of vantage point that landscape architects think a lot about.
Right.
And about the experience of somebody moving through a space. And I'd just be curious to know their thoughts about how this image might impact their design, about the integration of that experience.
Well, and I also took a look at Jack Mackey's artist contract to see if there was any language in there about any other art competing with his, since he, there's obviously been a lot of thought and discussion and time and money put into his particular project, and there wasn't. And I wanted to send it by him, but I was kind of afraid to, because I didn't know what I would do if I got back a vehement negative response, because again, all I can do is pass it along to Mike.
Yeah.
So.
But I think even if that was passed along, I think we would have done our due diligence in a way, as someone who, at the most, can deny putting a little bit of money towards this project, but at the least can say, we're looking out for the rest of this experience, and we think maybe you should think this or this about.
Well, and that's my thought about this whole project as a whole, and it would have been nice to kind of integrate that wall into the project from the beginning, because it is such a focal point. But I do like the mural.
We didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, but it should be a cohesive experience, and that wall does draw an incredible amount of focus.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's always, maybe it's just my personal opinion. I won't speak for anybody else on the committee, but I think I would prefer something that was a little more complementary to the mosaic image and the whole image that was, you guys are experts more than I, but somehow.
That was my feeling too.
I don't think that the two images complement each other enough. I think they would actually detract from each other, but.
Maybe the landscape architects get back and say, we see what you're getting at here, but if you could get us paid for an hour of our work to come up with a couple different schemes of what else you might try here, we think we could really help you make sure that you get a lasting experience in this setting. And you could go back to, sorry, I keep forgetting the proprietor's name here, the owner's.
Mike Hosier.
Mike, and see if he'd be willing to put in to something like that, or that might even be a better use of our funds, would be to help think about some other options for that wall.
Especially with all the input that's already gone into the project. But I know the value of murals do bring people to communities too.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure it enhances the whole project.
Well, and I think it would be good for Langston's profile too. He's an up-and-coming artist, and he's known in town, and this would give him a higher profile too.
Is the image on the bottom completed at this point, or in progress, or?
The mosaic?
Yes.
It's done.
It's finished.
Yeah, that is what it is.
And that was part of the original project.
Yeah, in fact, it was paid for by another group.
That's what they're saying.
That was the Champaign County Conservation and Design Fund or something like that, I think.
Just the styles and the coordination maybe of styles and colors, so they're complementary, or at least.
That was my only concern.
Yeah.
I think when he talked to us, and he was talking about the mosaic, it was very much related to the Boneyard Creek.
Yes.
And how it related, the history of it. And all
The seed pods and what actually grows there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so is this doesn't look like the Boneyard Creek to me.
We don't have that.
Well, no, he's just
No, he's
taking
actually
it
made
from
it.
a Hokusai print.
Right.
So
Not
it's this- oh, is it?
Hiroshige.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's it's a specifically Japanese quote. It's interesting. Mall for cultural appropriation. I'm just not sure yet about what this does to the whole experience, and I'm as mindful of that long view as I am of this juxtaposition that folks are thinking about here.
I guess what I'm thinking too is that I thought with the way he described it, we'd learn something about these, what'd you call them?
Little pods.
Seed pods and
Exactly, but then this kind of distracts from it, the big wave kind of thing. And so then I wonder if we're missing the point educationally of that. I don't know.
Though flooding is an issue.
So we need to have a car broken down there in the flooding?
So a different point, but very relevant to this. I had a conversation with Gary Crosby, who's heading the group that wants to site a medical marijuana dispensary and research laboratory. And the building that they propose to build, should they get the license, I mean, they bought the property, but the building that's on there now will be raised. They're going to put a new building, but that building will have a surface that's visible from the boneyard. So Gary and I talked about his desire to actually have a piece of art on that surface. And my suggestion, this was something quite a while ago that I talked to this committee about, would be to have something that represented the work and life of Carl Woese, the great evolutionary biologist who lived and worked in Urbana, and that it would be illustrated by a representation of it would be an artistic representation of a phylogenetic tree, which would be illustrated specifically by species that live in the boneyard. So anyway, we talked about this concept, and of course this is just like this was just over coffee, and my response to his saying he wanted, if the whole thing worked, he'd like to put something there. So we hopefully, if that project goes forward, we'll have an issue with that surface as well. So we ought to really figure out how to do this right.
I think what we're doing then is setting a policy maybe that we do help individual owners. The city does that, and I think that's real dangerous ground to go on.
Well, certainly just to, I would say, they can apply for a public arts grant like anybody else.
Okay.
It seems to me, but we don't have to accept the proposal as far as us funding it, and that's and I think this is this is I guess I agree with everybody. We ought to think hard because we're responsible for the funds about what we really want there. Because it's kind of our reputation. It's not just the artist's reputation, but it's our reputation. If we fund if he does it with his own money, he does it with his own money.
Right.
But if we contribute to it, and the community says, "Bob, what is that thing doing there?" Then that's not so great for us.
But I think most of the grants that we give are for non-for-profit organizations and everything. And I think if we once start doing private organizations or private businesses supporting artwork in their buildings or on the outside of their buildings or whatever, that's a whole new adventure for us, I think. Putting sculpture in front of public art businesses is one thing. It's on public property. But putting them on private buildings, businesses' buildings, I think, is a little dicey.
Well, there is the question, though, that this is right by the boneyard. If we can have some influence on it, it would be good.
And I think maybe it's worth just separating out the funding question from the guidance question, which is what we have a chance to offer here. And there's a tendency with so much art to say, well, whoever owns that particular square of space is who gets to say what art is there. And if it's city, then this body has something to say. And if it's not private, then they have something to say. Well, the experience of art isn't that parceled, right? You stand in one place and you look at another, and that's why we get architects to come in and redesign the boneyard, is to create an overall plan of an integrative experience. And I think we have a possibility for this board to offer guidance to those who do have the final say over what happens over their property about how to contribute to an integrative experience.
Which is different than financially supporting it.
I would say in addition. I'm just saying I think we have
Right,
the both,
exactly.
Ginny, that your issue and this issue are kind of both there.
Exactly.
Well, There's nothing to say that this couldn't have happened kind of from the other way, where Langston would have applied for like an arts grant and seen that wall and said, oh, that's a fantastic wall for a mural. I'm just, I want to paint on it. So he applies for an arts grant and then goes to Mike for more funding because the arts grant didn't cover it.
Right.
So it could have happened
Right.
that way. It just happened
That
that it came
makes
from
sense.
Yeah.
Mike.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe an aesthetic value. I mean, we're trying to redesign that area and enhance the value of coming to downtown Urbana. So we want to make sure that the imagery is attractive and well-suited to all the changes, that it fits in. But in reference to the new building, there is something in the ordinances that says new building, a percentage of the new building has to be dedicated to public art. I'll have to look it up. It's
That's
a
for
city-
municipal
Private.
projects,
Yeah.
I think.
Is this not, this is on city property or private?
Oh, no, it's on private
Private.
property.
I see.
They own the property. They're applying for a license to establish a medical marijuana dispensary and research facility there. So it'll be completely on private
I
property.
see, okay.
And in fact, he wasn't really speaking to me as a member. He wasn't thinking of me as a member of the Public Arts Commission. He was just talking to me, actually, as a city council person, because we have, several of us put in letters of support for his application to the state for the license, because we think he's just really he would really be excellent person to do that. He persuaded us of that. So, but I think this thing should really be regarded. I mean, maybe it's our first venture into considering public-private partnership, but the city does this all the time. I mean, we do it, for example, in the in tax increment financing. We have done it with, I'm not sure how it's going to really turn out. Maybe someday it'll turn out well, but we've done it with the Landmark Hotel. And so there is a precedent for partnering with private enterprise to enhance public amenities. So I think that this may be this commission's first taste of that, but I think that's, but I think when you do that, you have to come to some common agreement between the public body and the private body that you both agree on what's happening. I think we probably do agree, I'm guessing, that some sort of art on that surface is a good idea,
Right.
but that we would like to have, we would like to think more about exactly what that should be so that it fits into the publicly funded component of that cityscape.
Because sometimes architects will treat those surfaces many ways besides creating an image, right? They may say, well, what that really needs is just to break up the texture. And if you just added a certain kind of material to it, it would make it seem less like a big blank slate and work into other conversation of textures in the space or something. So there's many things besides an image that might perform the function needed here that we could bring an informed proposal to the owner about.
Well, and that's what Jack has done a lot with the stonework, I think, which is so wonderful about his
Yeah.
project. Well, in addition to going back to the landscape architect, and actually I'll save going back to Jack, since it looks like the proposal is going to change. Is there anything more specific that I can tell or go back to Mike Hosier with as far as rejiggering this proposal?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind would be that upper wall, probably the first level response maybe should be a continuation of what's happening on the lower wall, rather than something completely different. Like a larger scale change of those images, maybe the mosaic should be larger, or, I mean, just from my perspective as functioning as an art director when I was at the university, I mean, the first level response would be, when you look at this picture and granted one is further behind the lower one, is that what I heard?
Just a
If
little
you're-
bit, not,
If you're viewing it from a main pathway, as I thought I saw in that other picture, you would, not that you have to go in a first level response, but you would almost expect that upper panel to have some connection to what that lower panel is, rather than something completely different. Probably would help to actually stand there physically, I would, rather than looking at images.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I would roughly second that. I think that, I think it ought to be reflective of the theme of the Boneyard Park. And so partly, yes, partly the imagery that's on the lower wall, but maybe I don't know, maybe something that grows out of that organically, that reflects either the nature of the boneyard or the sort of vision of, sort of the landscape and the cityscape that is reflected in the design of the Boneyard Park.
That's why I asked if the bottom one was a given.
Yeah.
Because I think ultimately,
Yeah, it is.
the goal should be is that there appears to be coordination between one area of that and another.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, it sort of fit better than this one, I think. But of course, it is more expensive as well. How
it's
much-
about 10 to 20,000.
10 to 20,000 to do that one.
If I have access to,
Yeah. Mhm. Well,
I have-
it's one way you can do it anyway, yeah.
Glenn's a good friend of mine, so I wouldn't want to say anything. I didn't know he was involved with this.
Well, it was more nature-related. I don't know if you have it available, Lisa.
yeah, I don't know if I can have
Yeah.
access to the H drive. If I do, I can get into my files, but I don't see that I
Yeah.
have it. If you want to wait 2 seconds, I can run and get it and just put it up here.
Do y'all want to wait? Okay. Yeah.
I think, in a way, I'm hesitant to think about any particular image until we think about what the design principles
Exactly.
we will use to
Right.
Yeah.
consider
why I
any
don't-
treatment.
That's
Yeah.
what I was getting at.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah.
That upper part, ideally, I think, should flow
Yeah.
from what's already there.
Yeah, many would say if you're going to do something with it, you should go to the artist at the bottom part,
Well, that would be my
Well,
first
if we
thought.
had the money.
if we had the money. But
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if he does
Well,
murals.
it could even be that, again, that you just, again, this is a first level response, the bottom is a geometric. I mean, you could just change the scale on that. I mean, you could take one of those pods and just,
Yeah.
instead of something this big, it could be this big, but essentially the same image or a very similar image.
Yeah.
Or you could maybe even reverse it,
yeah,
where on the bottom one is positive on a negative ground, you could just reverse that for the upper. And maybe, is the bottom one actually done in stone? Is it an
Yes, it's in
actual
mosaic.
mosaic?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, then the upper part could be done in paint, but still from a distance,
Yeah.
maybe look similar to what's
These
going
look
on.
like they were meant to be together.
it gets into
That,
tricky.
to me, would be the key. I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't quite understand
Yeah, I don't
why
know if
you-
we want to restrict it or even give suggestions, but say it needs
Yeah,
to go
you know,
together.
just some, so that when it's all done, you get the feeling that there was planning,
Yes.
that there
Yes.
was coordination.
Yes.
Right.
Rather than, how did those two dissonant elements
Yes.
come to be viewed one on top? Not that you couldn't do that,
Well, and do
Because a
keep in
lot of
mind
art-
that could still happen anyway if he decided to do it
Right.
himself.
I'm wondering if he knows what the bigger picture was. Has anybody looked at the grand scheme of things, like on the city, is it still on the city website? I haven't looked for a while.
Yeah, I think so.
The proposal was there as to the larger concept.
I think that's really the key,
I
is
think
that
if he
you,
was realize what it looks like from the
Yeah.
concept and then try to fit it in.
Yeah.
Obviously, he wants to draw attention to his business.
Right.
I understand that. I don't fault him for that, but I think it needs to fit into the whole scheme of things.
And there are some towns that get into a lot of legislation about murals for this reason,
Mhm.
right? So they would put murals under the same kind of ordinances as signage.
Mm.
I
in
would
ter-
think so.
Because, precisely to try to keep this from getting to be, too many different things going on at once.
Different issues.
Now, that's a
That's a good
touchy,
point.
that's a,
Oh, yeah.
That is touchy.
it's touchy.
Right.
So,
Get into freedom of
Right.
expression and all that.
Yeah, I guess I would think of not being too, at this stage, maybe not being overly prescriptive
Yeah.
to the
Mhm.
artist,
Right.
because I agree with you that, the type of continuation you're describing would be actually really pretty cool, but I don't want to preclude the idea that
You have one in color.
the
too,
artist
don't
might
you?
actually
You have one in color too, don't
even
you?
Oh, no.
develop something really super that we hadn't thought of
I'm
at
all
all.
for artistic freedom. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh,
always
that's
have
just the
been.
samples of the painting style, but
Yeah.
it's not the actual, okay, so go
I-
back to the other one, sorry.
Specific color concept,
Yeah.
And I don't mean to suggest that ordinance is the way to go here. I'm just trying to look at the context within which we're working. I think
Right.
guidance is going to be the best thing this body
Right.
can offer.
Right.
Right.
And
Oh.
expertise based on our unique abilities to look at a plan offered by a contracted architect and interpret it for our city's use.
But for example, something like what we're looking at now, which might envision the boneyard as it might have been 300 years ago in a more natural.
Primal state.
In a
Primal
more
state.
primal state. I think I'd have a very different reaction to that, and probably a positive reaction to it, as compared to the ocean theme or the wild water theme. This something that reflected this kind of sensibility. I'd look at that and I'd say, yeah, that might really be neat.
So who would have the final decision on this? The owner of the building?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
his building.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, so.
And I'm not sure, since it costs so much, if he could actually do it for the
Right.
full
Yeah,
price,
That's
so
the thing, this one's
and
pretty
I'm-
expensive.
would hesitate to say that
Yeah.
I don't think the city would contribute $10,000 towards it, so.
And I'd have the same questions about this that I have of the other, in terms of its role within the large picture here.
Mhm.
I mean,
Right,
I understand that the content appears to be more tied,
right.
but whether or not seeing a representational image at all from a
Right.
distance is a question in my mind.
Might there be other surfaces in that area that might come up in the future for the same kind of treatment, or no?
Not for this public art project.
Okay.
No, that's finished.
I'm just wondering about eventually that area across from Silver Creek Restaurant that eventually may get developed. And then I could see where, we're maybe talking a decade, but I could see where maybe if there's new development there, then there would be potential for something.
Well, and my thought about this is that it is such an overall thought-out master plan, and we run the risk of having 5 or 6 different art projects all around it that are not tied into the original vision, too. So that's something
Yeah.
to think about.
Yep.
And people are going to want to, because I think there will be development around those bare spots.
Should we give more thought to perhaps what we want our policy to be in that case, if this is going to come up again?
In terms of public-private partnerships, or?
Well, how we want to handle it.
Yeah, so I would say that this would be a very good agenda item for this commission to bring to the city council for discussion. Because at the end of the day, if you do want to have something analogous to, you know, what some communities do with murals, or if you want the city to have any role in what happens to private property that is, you know, in eye shot of the boneyard, at the end of the day, that'll have to be an ordinance. And so giving, just as a point of discussion or maybe an information item for the council, just to let them know that this this has emerged as a discussion item in Public Arts Commission, and that we may be, you know, and just keeping the council informed, because the last thing we would want, I don't think it's going to happen, it clearly won't happen, but the last thing that we would want would be to something to happen, you know, on the private property, on this surface, for example, that somebody, that the city council looks at and says, holy smokes, why didn't you warn us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and Mike is giving us the courtesy of running it by us.
By
He
us.
doesn't have to do that.
No.
Please
Sure.
thank him for that. And I think I want to make sure he hears from us how much we appreciate his
Yeah.
looking to partner with us. This is at a great stage right now, I
That's
think.
commendable.
Right,
And
right, it's terrific.
I think, to Eric's point, I could imagine a future where we, even if we could afford it, put some arts funding towards a kind of site plan recommendation for art that's in view of the larger project, that we could commission from architects, whether the original landscape architects or someone else, that could end up being a set of guidelines for the future that the city could look to this body to help interpret, but which have been provided and commissioned by someone who has expertise in planning spaces.
Well, and hopefully it would actually enhance his business, not
Yes.
detract from it in any way.
Mhm.
Right.
Wasn't there some point, maybe it was early on in the discussion when we were, and Jack Mackey was still here, there were some thoughts of the educational teaching value of the Boneyard, and teachers bringing students in their classes there to learn about the history of the Boneyard. So whatever imagery does finally go on that wall, hopefully would enhance that concept.
Well, I think at the least, we want something that will not clash with what's already there. So, okay, Lisa, do we need to discuss this any further, do you think, at this point?
No, let me just make sure that I have a clear directive in my own mind. So I'll contact the landscape architects and see what ideas they have. And then I'll go back to Mike, to go back to Langston and say, these are some of the ideas that we would like to see in this proposal.
I would only add that in light of this conversation, you might talk to the architects about the fact that we anticipate there being other such surfaces appearing in proximity of their
Right.
plan. And
Yeah.
could they provide us some guidance for how to treat those images, those surfaces?
And then Eric, to your point about going to council, is it okay to kind of go, even though the process is not quite finished yet, that we're in the middle of it, or do we need to have more of a finished product?
I would say that maybe I'd go to council in a more general way and say that we're starting to consider the aesthetics of the area around the Boneyard. We're prompted to do this by a proposal. I wouldn't even specify what the proposal is, but by a proposal for private-public funding, you know, on private property, but adjacent to the Boneyard, and this is opened up for our consideration the whole issue of what the public policy should be, whether there should be any public policy, and we just want to let them know that we're wrestling with this, and that you know, they're if they're interested, you know, certainly welcome to discuss that, to come and discuss that with us. I could imagine that, I mean, different members of the council will have different degrees of interest. I mean, I can sort of almost anticipate what the you know, what the initial response will be from different council members, but I won't go into that. But I think that it's a good idea to let them all know that the issue has now emerged as a discussion item, and in this commission, that any individual council person who wants to be apprised of you know, the ongoing discussions should certainly feel free to you know, communicate you know, to communicate with, for example, you, I guess, really as the point person, and that at appropriate times we'll let them know how our thinking is progressing on that.
And in terms of the funding issue, if there's anything to take back to Mike, should I say pending another review of another proposal or two, the committee or the commission is interested in funding, or just not even address that right now? Because he's probably going to want to know at the end of the day, is it even feasible that the commission would approve the project and go forward with funding at some point?
I think it's still in conversation.
I would say, as a point of principle, I'm not opposed to contributing to a
Right.
project like
Yeah.
this.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think I am
And in
either.
fact, it's absolutely terrific that he wants to involve us
Yeah.
at all, as opposed to doing whatever the heck he wants
Right.
to
Yes.
with his building, but that we really have to think among ourselves about, you know, what the terms of that would be, and we're very concerned that that anything that we support would be, you know, consistent with the overall theme of the Boneyard, but we really want to continue to have this discussion, and that we would be open to partnering in the funding, but we have to be partners in the conceptualizing.
It's possible they just didn't think that far. You know, they got focused on one aspect, but didn't they didn't realize they needed to look at the bigger picture. So
Yeah.
maybe, hopefully, we're helping them.
Okay. If there are no more comments, then I think we're done with that topic. Just have a couple announcements. The November meeting is going to be held on Tuesday, November 18th, and the Folk and Roots Festival is going to be happening, as we've already said, on November 7th and 8th.
And one more announcement. Brandon Boyce has been promoted to the Economic Development Manager for Community Development, so he has now taken over Tom Carino's position. So,
Okay.
And that's great.
Yes.
I mean, not that Tom was bad, but Brandon is just really an exceptional person. I think that's going to be great.
That's great. Okay. Would someone like to move that we adjourn?
So moved. Second.
We're adjourned.